Last week, we had to put our dog down. In the months and even the weeks leading up to it, I thought to myself, he's 15. He's lived an incredible life. I'm comfortable in the death and dying space. I shot an entire documentary on hospice. I've literally died and come back. I believe that this body is not the end of us. I believe dying is a new beginning. And yet, putting Billy down absolutely gutted me. It shattered my heart into a million pieces. It's outrageous how hard it's been to let him go. My heart goes out to anyone who's ever had to do this. It is so freaking hard. But in my grief, I came back to this podcast to edit the interview I shot over a month ago, but had planned for today. And of course, at its core, this conversation is about how to let go. Kristin Kildea is an angel on this earth. She's an RN, a hospice nurse. And not only does she care for people who are dying, but she cares for people who have nowhere else to turn. My documentary, The Isaiah House Project, was really a love letter about the compassion Kristin Kildea gives the world and everyone she encounters. Most people don't want to think about or talk about what dying looks like or what their dying will look like. And I totally get it. It's scary. It's morbid. It's not a fun topic. But the wild thing is, when you talk about it with Kristen, somehow it's not depressing at all. In fact, it's just the opposite. You end up being absolutely inspired. So in this tough week, full of grief and tears, what a gift it's been for me to live back in this edit, to feel comfort in reframing my sorrow, to be reminded about the sacredness of the moment, and to learn how to let go. Hi, I'm Laura Scarpati, filmmaker and woo-woo enthusiast. Here today to cut through the noise, pull back the veil, and cozy up in the space between reality and spirituality. Thanks for listening to The Woo Report. Kristin Kildea, welcome to The Woo Report.
So glad to be here.
We have spent hours and hours and hours over the last several years doing exactly this.
Yes.
For me, you are one of my biggest expanders, which to me means every time I'm with you, I'm fragile today. I'm emotional today. Every time I'm with you, my heart gets bigger. Truly. You are the most compassionate person I've ever met my whole life. And you are an angel on earth. And I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Literally, like, so happy here on the Woo Report, but like in my life.
And you opened my heart.
I think this is like the first time I've ever cried on here. And it's like for 3 seconds in. Didn't mean to. It's a fragile moment. But let's talk about you. How long have you been in hospice?
I've been in hospice for closer to 25 years.
And why did you start? What made you get into it?
I was a single mom. I needed more than one job to survive. And this job that came up was hospice. And I had no experience in it at all. I had heard about it as a young nurse. And I thought, maybe someday I would like to do that. But I wasn't necessarily drawn to it until I started. Until I believe one of my first experiences, which was not a good one, was my calling. And then it just went on from there. And now it's my life.
Will you tell everyone about that first experience?
My first experience was going to see a young man who had been in college, found out he was no longer in remission, and he was actively dying. And I went to leave the house, and I said, "Have a good day." And I really beat myself up when the door shut. I'm like, how could you have said that? Like, how insensitive. There are a million things you could have said today. not that one. So I started listening, conscious listening, and not talking, but taking it all in. So every experience with a mentor and a preceptor was more about hearing what people had to say rather than what I had to say, because really at that point, I had very little to say. I needed to take it all in. So a few months had gone by and I was asked to go on my first call. And that's when I was just like, whoa. I rehearsed it in my head before I got there. I knew what was going on. Dorothy was short of breath. She was blue. My husband didn't know. Joe didn't know what to do. I was going to go in the house and I was going to tell them exactly what they needed to do. So I walked in the house and Joe was on the phone and I said, hey, Joe, can you go get me all of her medications? So he stayed on the phone and he brought in the medications and he emptied them out on the bed. And I said, well, we're going to send her out and then they'll get her symptoms under control and she can come back home if that's what you'd like. And Joe looked at me and he said, nurse, please, no. I promised her she would never have to leave here. So from that moment on, I got on the phone with the doc. Now, I was an emergency room nurse. I knew how to take orders. And I was on the phone with the doctor, and I look at Dorothy, who is labored breathing, and something came over me. It was a spiritual moment. It was not me. I will never take any credit for this moment. There was no thought to it. It was almost like I was elevated, and I couldn't hear. I didn't want to. I didn't want to hear one thing that doctor had to say on the other end of the phone. I was so in tune to what Dorothy was doing. And I said, and what Dorothy needed. And I said, Dorothy, I said, would you like Joe to come lie next to you? And she looked at me and she said, yes. So I called Joe, who's still on the phone. And I know Joe's on the phone because Joe can't handle what's happening in that bed. I said, Joe, can you come in? And he came in and I said, Joe, Dorothy wants you to lay next to her. And so Joe hangs up the phone immediately, and he had to have been in his early 90s. He crawls on all fours into the bed and lies right next to her. They're holding hands, and the tears start coming down. It was just a moment, and all of a sudden, I hear the doctor again. And I'm like, okay, we got to do this. We got to do that. So I get her in a place where she's much more comfortable with medications, and I'm getting ready to leave. And I said, Joe, you don't have to show me to the door. I said, you're right where you need to be. And he said, oh, no, nurse, I have to show you to the door. And Dorothy was feeling so much better. So he gets out of bed on all fours again, and he walks me to the door, and he goes, nurse, I've been taking care of her for 21 years. That moment in there, it made it all worthwhile. And the next morning, I called to find out if Dorothy made it through the night, and she hadn't. And I thought, I wonder if that moment in there that made it all worth it, if he knew that that wasn't me. That was that higher power. And it became so clear to me that there is something so much bigger than us, especially at the end of someone's life, that I had to be a part of it. And I just started working every area of hospital. I couldn't get enough of it. And then I ended up at the Isaiah House, which is a unique place.
Tell us about the Isaiah House.
I've been there for 18 years. I fell in love with Isaiah House because they were taking care of the people the throwaways, the marginalized, the people that aren't seen by society.
What does that mean?
It's the people that nobody else want to say hello to on the street. They don't want to look in their eyes. They want to walk by them and pretend that they don't exist. But those are the people that I've been so drawn to in my career. I find that death is very marginalizing in itself. So to see people who are placed over there in a corner in a pocket where nobody has to see them it's extremely painful to me, and it's something that I'm inspired to change in the world, and that's what I try to do. And Isaiah House is the perfect place at home to make that happen, to make the world a different place, a more beautiful place for people, one person at a time.
So if you don't know, Isaiah House is a 2-bedroom nonprofit comfort care home where Kristen and a team of volunteers takes care of people who would otherwise die alone. Mm-hmm. These are people who are unhoused, they're struggling with mental illness, they struggle with addiction, and nowhere else will take them. Right. The hospitals don't want them to die in the hospital. And you take them in. And this story that you just told about Joe and his wife, that is one story of how many people have you taken care of? How many people in Isaiah House and beyond over the 25 years? How many people have you taken care of at the last days of their life?
Hundreds, if not more. And I think one of the unique things about being at the Isaiah House is I'm spending 8, 10, 12 hours, Monday through Friday, sometimes weekends, with a person who is living before they die. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where my focus tends to go, and that is my passion, helping people live up to the moment that they are ready to die. And I think for a lot of people, when you get that prognosis of less than 6 months, less than 3 months, the people around you tend to feel like you're dying. But you may not necessarily believe you're dying. You're living. Even if you do believe you're dying, you want to live until the last day. So that's what we try to do. And I believe a lot of people want that for their loved one. They just don't know what it looks like.
What does it look like? Because I don't think people do know. And I will tell everyone, and I said this every time I talked about my documentary, which is about Kristen and about the Isaiah House Project. But when I first came into Isaiah House, I thought it was going to be sad. I was anticipating a depressing atmosphere. And you were like, come over to Isaiah House. I came over. It was 10 a.m. on a Thursday, and it was Mimosa Thursday. And Kristen and all of these volunteers and a resident were out on the back porch cackling with laughter and joy and sharing stories. And when I started asking questions, Kristen started sharing story after story after story about people who were doing exactly that. They were living. Mm-hmm. They were not just living. They were growing, learning about themselves, self-reflecting. Their self-worth was evolving and transforming because of the compassionate care that you were giving it, because you were listening, because they felt heard, because they felt seen. And it is everything.
Yeah.
It is why we are here.
Yes.
The amount of purpose, and that's why I got so curious and just fell in love. I turned the camera on and started asking people about their mortality, because when you learn you are dying, and I imagine, because I haven't died, although I almost did.
Yeah.
You are reflecting a lot on what you have gone through and what you have done and what you didn't do and what you said and what you didn't say. And so tell us what dying looks like.
That's such a great question. Dying doesn't look like the movies depict it to be. It's hard, and it's different for everyone. And I can't emphasize that enough, because what happens is you may have a loved one that you experience their dying with them, and you think it's supposed to look that way the next time. But I think it's so important for people to understand that everyone's death should be their own. It's a very personal experience, and it should be lived however they choose to live it. And we companion people through that time. And I feel like if there's going to be a hiccup, it's because at some point in the dying process, as we're companioning someone, we start trying to navigate their path for them. So dying is so different that it's hard to say what does dying look like because it's so different for everyone. But I can tell you that it's living. It's living richer, deeper, with an awareness that you have never experienced before. And I just had this conversation with a woman this morning by the name of Jane, who is in her 80s and saying to me, she had a great life. She traveled. She was an artist and created beautiful life, family, but she doesn't know life now as she faces the end of her life. And I asked her, I said, is that because you're looking at life through a different lens? I said, is there more awareness now? And she didn't really have the answer. It was something she's going to ponder, and really reflect about, but think about it. She knew who she was. She is a strong, independent woman. She's lived many, many years. She doesn't know what life is supposed to look like for her right now. Dying, what does it look like? It looks like a lot of questions, a lot of unknowns, but it should be unknown for every single person. Every person around that person should feel like, we don't know. Let's do this together. Let's companion, I love to use that word, but let's live life together. And sometimes there are people, they're afraid. They're so afraid, not necessarily of dying, but that experience that we're talking about. What does it look like? What's it supposed to look like? First of all, giving people permission to do it however they choose to do it. It's okay. There's no right. There's no wrong. How freeing. If you think about it, set yourself, your soul, your entire being, just be free. When in life can you do that?
I mean, so rarely, even in the end, I think, can people do that, because at the end, let's say you can't move. Let's say you're stuck in bed.
Yeah.
And then what it feels like, and I think from far away, what it feels like is that everyone else is running the show and you are just sitting in bed waiting to die.
Yeah.
But at Isaiah House, that is not what it looks like.
Right. Now, I will say this. So there are obviously hospice professionals. We know. Yes. Okay. We know certain things. We know medications. We know equipment. We know what we've seen. And sometimes it's helpful to share. Other times they just, people want to share what they're experiencing. They really don't want to hear what you have to say. They don't want you to know.
Yeah, sure.
They don't want that. And then there's other times where people will ask me, Kristen, I've thought about this my whole entire life, and now I'm doing it, and I feel like I'm in the woods. Like, I don't know how to do this. And then all I have to say to them is, you're doing it. It's that easy. So I think maybe that's part of it in life, and I know we're going to talk about this maybe today or at another time, how does dying impact our living?
Tell us how dying affects our living.
Well, this came up for us. Yeah, was it yesterday or the day before we were doing our morning commute?
This comes up for us all the time because you have told me over and over again, the dying are such great teachers and how much you learn from working with the dying. So let's unpack that.
Yeah. And I want to say this. I've spent a number of years working in hospice. I've always said the dying are such wonderful teachers. A lot of people will look to me for answers, for guidance, but I am a student. I am constantly learning and I'm constantly evolving, and I love that. I love thinking that I understand something and then I'm proven wrong. And wow, it's exciting for me. So I always have said the dying are such wonderful teachers, and at the bedside, they have so many things to teach us about life, gratitude and appreciating the little things in life, and we can go on. And I took care of a man who was not dying. But when he saw the video that you had made, he said at 89 years old, I don't want to die. I'm afraid of it. I have a beautiful life. I don't want to leave it. And it made me realize at that moment, which was very recent, that where I have been trying to make people more comfortable with dying, you labor into the world, you labor out of the world. Like, it's not like the movies. And if it doesn't look like beautiful, if there were dips and hills and valleys, whatever it was, it's not because you did something wrong or that someone didn't do their dying right. I want to make dying very real to people. Mm-hmm. But I forgot about the millions and billions of people that are really afraid to think about their dying, that they avoid thinking about dying because it's so scary. They don't want to do it. And there's so many of us that feel that way. And I realized just very recently, and we talked and it expanded a little bit more, this work is really to teach people how to live better. It's not supposed to be saved for the bedside. And isn't it interesting? This is what I've learned working with the dying. I've learned that I say I love you to everyone that I love. If I think you're a wonderful person, kind, if you've done something nice that's made me feel warm all over, if I've only known you for 2 minutes, I'm going to tell you that, I'm going to take the time to smile. I'm going to feel the breeze against my face. I'm going to appreciate the leaves blowing on the tree. I'm going to appreciate all those little moments, and I can tell you why. Because each and every day, I work with someone who may be experiencing that for the last time. It doesn't leave me. So, as a young woman watching Oprah and trying to be aware, live in the present moment, right? I worked so hard to do that as a single mom and a career woman. I always lost it. I couldn't hold on to it. The day always got beyond me. I always thought about tomorrow, no matter how hard I tried to stay in the present. Working with the dying is such a gift because it's a reminder every single day. Now let's think about this, and this came to me today. The one thing we are the most afraid of in life is the one experience that if we opened ourselves up to it as someone was dying, it would be the most enriching, meaningful, life-changing experience we would ever have. But yet, we avoid the opportunity to live with people as they are dying. We're afraid of it. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to ask questions. We want to pretend it's not happening. And the reality is, that's the place we need to be. And, I thought about it because, in fairness, people are going on silent retreats. People are listening to the Woo Report. Everyone, we are all grasping on what we need to do to stay in the moment, to appreciate the little things in life, to practice letting go and being able to live through that letting go and finding and working to be happy and find joy in every day if possible. But yet the one thing we can really do and experience is someone's dying, but we will avoid it at all costs. But so I'm just, it's been one of those days where I've just felt very inspired by that. And I'm going to just go all over the place for you.
Please do.
Just to make you crazy.
I love it.
But I got to tell you, I was looking at our website or our Instagram
Oh, yeah.
after we talked.
Isaiah House's Instagram?
It's so gentle. It's so peaceful. It's so not Isaiah House. I was like, where's the laughter? Where's the dancing? Where's the people being wild and crazy, making mistakes, laughing at themselves? Like, where's that? Where's the crying? Where's the hugging and the holding? There's so many emotions that we go through as we're experiencing this in life, this dying. And yet, society, even us, like, we try it. It's calm.
This
It's
is so
peaceful.
good, Kristen. This is so good because you're so right.
Right?
When I look at Isaiah House, this is what people say about Instagram versus reality. That is exactly what it is. Isaiah House Instagram, it's an exhale in your feed because your feed is chaotic, but it isn't what dying looks like.
I don't want to portray dying like that. It's not that way. It's not. And people really aren't looking for that when their loved one is dying. They are. Everybody wants peace. We want peace all the time.
For sure.
We don't necessarily always want calm.
That's true.
Peace
You
is one
definitely
thing.
don't. And that's something that draws me to you, but then everyone to you, is that it's like exactly what you think. You think hospice is going to be like a certain way, even maybe peaceful, even maybe that. But then you say this in one of the videos that I made for Isaiah House, but you said, we dance.
Yes.
We dance.
Yes.
And so, yeah, there's all that joy. You're cackling on the couch. You're making Mimosa Thursday. You're throwing a fiesta. You're throwing birthday parties. You're partying. You're crying. You're holding hands. You are embracing each other.
I'm dressing as a leprechaun.
You're dressing as a leprechaun.
This is...
And then also having serious conversations in the leprechaun costume.
But this is the thing. Like, I think for so many people, they're actually craving permission. Okay. The doctors just told me I have less than 6 months to live. And it's supposed to look like this. Everything I've heard, it's supposed to look like this. And what's wrong with me? I don't want it to look like this. I want to go to lunch with my girlfriends. I want to have wine. I want to have my favorite drink at 5 o'clock. I want to dress up crazy. I want to go here or there. Wait a minute. I'm supposed to be dying. I want to live like I'm dying. I want to live like I'm dying. But the people around me, this isn't living for me. They're taking care of me. They're trying to fix it. They're trying to take care of me. But right now, I just want them to tell me I can. And that's the interesting. There's a dynamic that's set up. When you are told you have less than 3 months to live, and that person that loves you more than anything in the world is sitting beside you, what does that person want to do? That person wants to take care of you, wants to love you, wishes they could fix it. And as a result, what happens, and it's nobody's fault, this is truly the dynamic that takes place. That person that loves you so much and wants to give you everything that you possibly need takes away the one thing that you are desperate for, and that's control. And as that person starts taking control, it starts changing the equilibrium of the relationship. And it can get very complicated and unpleasant for everyone. And here where you were hoping when you heard those words, it was going to draw you closer. There's something happening. The energy that's taking place is actually putting something in between the two of you or the three or the four of you, and none of you understand what's happening. And the doctors aren't going to tell, well, you're dying. Well, take more lorazepam. Are you no. Let's look at what's happening here. And it's nobody's fault. Like, how do you know that? How do you know that's
so
happening?
hard to navigate.
I've cared for so many people in a home-like setting, families together. I've learned this stuff. It just doesn't come. It can't come the first time around. But there has to be somebody out there. There has to be somewhere you can go to learn the emotional, psychological piece of living as you're dying. The physical piece, we've got it. We've got it down. It's that, and it's not easy. It is, I say we dance. It is a dance.
Yeah. So the physical part of dying, I think, also scares people. Mm-hmm. What happens at the end when we are physically dying?
See, it took me a long time to get to the physical piece because so much of this is about living, and it's emotional, it's psychological, it's spiritual. I always tell people the physical part of dying is so small compared to the rest of it. I mean, in hospice, we like to break it all down, into spiritual, emotional, psychological, physical. Well, I always tell our volunteers at Isaiah House, the physical is like minute.
That is not common knowledge.
It's minute.
Because I think that's what people fear is the physical part, right? I mean, I don't know.
And that's not the part they should. The part they should fear is that letting go, because that is the hard part. But again, if you practice it, and what does that look like practicing it in everyday life? I was experiencing what I thought was going to be a breakup in the shower, heartbroken, thinking this is the end of this relationship, and then realizing, wait a minute, Kristen. This is an opportunity to practice letting go. How are you going to handle this? I looked at it completely different. And I mean, as we age, we're always letting go of something. So I really believe the intention here was human beings are brought into this world. They are going at a certain point, I am going to start, whoever this is out there, the universe, let's practice letting go of things, of relationships, of things that really matter to us. Let's practice that. Because in the end, you have to let go of everything. And how you do that, you can't learn it. You can't learn it at the very end. You have to practice this because it's really hard. So now you're in bed, and we talked about that physical piece of it, which it's different for everyone. And they write this book here locally, and it tells you the steps of dying. And I actually hate the book because I feel like it may scare people because a lot of people don't experience certain symptoms. So you're looking at something and you're like, oh no, this is going to happen to me. And it never is going to happen to you. But I do understand that people need to know something in regards to what's happening physically. So the body is created to survive. What will start happening is you will no longer want to eat. It'll begin like, oh, I just want ice cream today, or I just want tiramisu today. I just want one type of thing, and it might be bites, and families struggle over this. Food is love. And I believe maybe every culture, food is love. And it also says, and this is what I've learned, we're really losing them. Like if they don't eat, we're going to lose them very soon. Like
it's like a panic. It's like, this is it. This is it. This is the end. They don't eat something.
Yeah. So what I've learned is when I talk to families, I'll encourage them, let's focus on drinking, because drinking feels good right now. And drinking, you have 5 to 7 days after you stop drinking. So families, all of a sudden they'll shift gears and they'll be bringing smoothies in and milkshakes and all of that. But then you're not going to want to drink either. Depending on what your diagnosis is, your breathing changes. That's a big one. I think breathing, because as all your systems start slowing down, your circulation, everything starts slowing down. Don't forget, your skin is an organ. Your skin can even start breaking down. Again, remember, the body is created to survive. So the respiratory system is that system that just starts doing a lot of crazy stuff. You'll see really labored breathing. You'll see pauses in breathing. The physical part of dying, unless, I just have to say this, unless you're in pain, unless you can't breathe. And this is a point I want to bring up, because someone said this to me once, that a dying person said, if I'm constipated, if I'm having pain, if I'm having shortness of breath, I can't focus on one other thing. And that to me was like, wow. That was a wow moment for me, because often physically there is a symptom happening. Now, for every symptom, there is a medication to treat it. Treat that symptom. And I know a lot of people are afraid of the medications, but treat that symptom, because there's all these other things you have to do when you're dying that you want to do. So treat the symptom, because if you don't, that's all you focus on. If you treat the symptom and get a handle on that, then you can focus on the other things that you want to focus on.
That is really good. Because I also think at the end sometimes, and there's people in my life who have guilt around giving their loved one medications at the end of their life. Because they thought maybe the medications were adding to the quickness of how they went out.
I hear it all the time. It is our toolbox to comfort. And as the body is dying, it's letting go, there are symptoms. And you take the medication as ordered, and you're going to go through those symptoms, and you're going to be more comfortable.
When I first met you, I had recently had this near-death experience, which, by the way, yesterday was 5 years.
Wow.
I think that's why I'm like emotional.
Oh my gosh.
Because 5 years ago, I could have died. And I came home last night and told Matt, I was like, 5 years ago was my accident. And he was like, I'm so happy you're alive.
God.
And like, that's why when we talk about like living and like the importance of living as we're dying, or just living while we're living while we don't know what day we're going to die.
Yeah.
That is so why I'm so passionate about talking about living in the present and talking about these things in our life that will help give us peace, give us support, give us love, teach us to love ourselves more, teach us about self-worth, because like I feel like I'm on borrowed time.
Yeah.
In a way that, yes, like what are we doing here? What is the purpose of all this?
Yeah. And not everyone has that near-death experience that opens their every part of their being to there's more. Like, I'm so curious to learn and experience it all, because I don't know how much longer I have. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine the amount of living. I mean, we've talked a lot about it, but you have done in these 5 years.
I have spent also so much more time. I've carved out space for myself.
Yeah.
Which I feel like could look selfish or could look a certain way, but it is so important to me now to be able to work on myself. And I'm always doing something in a way that like is fun to me. And I love learning more about myself now. But I didn't do it for 35, 36 years of my life. I didn't like spend time really focused on me. It was all about the outward projection of like what was going on, what was my job, what was my relationship, what was my family doing, what are we doing, what trip are we going on, and like just to be alone with myself is so important to me now. And I learned so much, but I also imagine that at the end of my life or at the end of people's lives, that time is also so important.
And it happens, and it's essential. There is a withdrawing where you kind of move within. It's essential for people that are preparing for their dying. They will at a certain point, and I've always thought, what do the families feel like? They're losing their loved one before they've lost their loved one, because there is, and again, it's essential as you're living and preparing for your dying. Not because you were told you have less than 3 months to live. That inward work, this is about me. Think about it. As someone is dying, they're often taking care of everybody else in their way, worried about everyone else, just as you as a mom and a wife and a daughter are worried about everybody else. And you are saying, since this experience, I need to take time for me. Well, when, again, another lesson to be learned from the dying, they do it too. There is a moment in their dying process where they stop. They stop talking and they withdraw, they go within. And I've often said, I don't know what that work is. It's very personal, and I'm not supposed to. I don't need to know, but I know that it needs to happen. So if it needs to happen at that point, it needs to happen throughout our entire life, where we count ourselves in. And I think that's what the dying person is doing. They are literally taking a moment, and that moment could be 2-3 days, but it's going to happen before they die, and they are going to work through. I can imagine it's a working through, it's a reminiscing, it's a reflection, it's a spiritual experience in terms of, I didn't say this earlier, but one of the things that drew me, and I call, my calling to hospice, was the sacredness of the work, like the spiritual presence of something besides us. So I feel like when that withdrawal is happening, or that moving within is happening, the energy, the spiritual energy around that person is like, it's magnificent. It fills the room. You feel it. And I believe if you think about it, they're thinking, what's next? I'm in the moment. I'm looking at what was back there in my past. And I'm looking at, or I'm feeling, where I'm going next. And what do we miss out on in life if we're not taking moments like that? Because we are spiritual beings. There is something, I believe there's a bigger power, a higher power out there. And those moments that we take where we are drawn to us are also moments where spirituality around us is just.
Well, one of the first things I asked you after taking care of so many people and watching them die, I asked you if you saw something leave the body. And will you tell everyone what you told me?
I think I told you that I had really never told anyone that. So now I'm going to tell everyone that listens to the Woo Report. So I really didn't share this with anyone, but so when someone is actively dying, it can go on for hours, maybe 2-3 days. They're actively laboring. I'm at the bedside and I'm watching. It's a sacred time, and it's a sacred time because it doesn't feel like it's just the people in the room. It feels like not necessarily family members who had passed on, but maybe people that had passed on in the house. They're there. And I can say that because I have had people who are actively dying that have told me, that have actually been talking to the person who's there and described them to me, and then gone back to having a conversation with the person that's there. So I know that there's helpers. When I started this, I did not have strong feelings. Yes, I believed in heaven, but I didn't have strong feelings about dying. So all of this I have learned, and I've learned because I've seen it over and over again. So what I know for sure is that nobody leaves this world without a helper. And you can invite the helpers in. I've done that. I've lost people close to me, and I've invited those helpers in, and I've felt them. So, that's one thing that I feel when I'm in a room with a person, but there's something I see, and that's as the person is taking their last breaths. If you've ever seen like water or oil in a mud puddle, it's all those colors. I see that leave the person's body at a certain point, and it's usually very close to their actual dying. And you just see them exhale these colors, and they're beautiful, they're sparkly. They're beautiful. And I believe it's the soul of the person that is just leaving the body. I truly believe that. For me, I've never shared it with anyone other than you. And I mean, we talk so deeply about death and dying and there's such a trust between the two of us that I was comfortable saying that to you. Wasn't always sure how other people would perceive that, but there is definitely a knowing. And again, I don't look for these things. I'm not trying to figure out what's on the other side. My passion is getting people to the other side, but I can't help but see these things, feel these things, and realize, wow, there's something really beautiful waiting for us, and it's a place that people don't, I mean, you've talked about it, but they don't want to come back here. That's how awesome it is, so. And I even have that story, a quick one. Emma, I was welcoming her into the Isaiah house because her daughter was so exhausted taking care of her. And I knew that Emma had a sister by the name of Shirley who had died prior. And I didn't even think Emma was going to make it to Isaiah house. Like, she was very close. But she made it to Isaiah house, and she was still with us 3 days later. And a volunteer came upstairs, and she said, Emma is asking us to turn on the TV. And I said, what? So I ran downstairs, and Emma was breathing very deeply, like people breathe when they're close to dying. And I said, okay. No, like, she was unresponsive. So then the next day, a volunteer came up again and said, Emma is asking me to call her sister Shirley. Now they had my attention. I ran downstairs, and Emma was awake this time. Now, I knew this was a big deal because I knew that Shirley had died. So when Emma came out of it, this was her story. She said, Kristen, she said, my daughter, she was so stressed out. I didn't want to be there anymore. She said, but then I came here. She goes, and I could hear people smiling, or I could hear people laughing, and she couldn't see. She could hear people laughing. And she said, and I was walking down this path, and I was singing, and I was so happy, and I saw this light, and I got to the light, and when I got there, my sister was there. And she said, oh no, Emma, we're not ready for you just yet. You need to go back. She said, and I was so sad. And she came back. So.
And how much longer did she last?
She ended up leaving Isaiah House alive.
What?
Yeah. Moved back with her daughter and died with her daughter.
Wow.
Yeah.
She graduated.
She graduated. Every once in a while that happens.
Wow. Kristen.
Is this it?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I mean, we only scratched the surface. I feel like we talk deeply every single day about all the things.
We do. There's so much to talk about. And we just, I love just sitting with you.
Me too.
And creating magic together.
Me too. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom. I love you so much.
Thank you. I love you so much.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. For way more woo-woo, please follow and subscribe to the Woo Report podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you love to listen. Never miss an episode of The Woo Report by joining the community at thewooreportpodcast.com. Thank you for liking, sharing, rating, and loving on this little slice of magic. I am so, so grateful you are here. Bye.